Hello and welcome to The Exchange, where we invite leaders in their field to join us to discuss topics of interest to all of us in our everyday lives. I'm Rob Buckingham and my co-host on The Exchange is my wife, Christie.
This is going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to it. I love this topic.
On today's show, we're going to be discussing how we can make a global difference locally. I'm sure we've all seen and heard about many of the tragic situations in other countries of poverty, war and persecution, some right on our doorstep. Can we as Australians really do something that will make a difference? To discuss this topic, we're very happy to be joined by a man who's trying to do that very thing. Alby Tomassi from YGAP. Welcome to you, Alby.
Welcome, Alby.
Thanks for having us.
We're also thrilled to be joined by another YGAP's Ghana team leader, Laura Meese. Hi, Laura. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Great to have you. Before we start our discussion, let's look at the video.
Oh, wow. My smartphone only has 2% battery left. First world problems.
I've been invited to way too many things on Saturday night. First world problems.
I've been playing video games all day, but now my hands really hurt. First world problems.
My sister was kidnapped and sold into slavery. I don't have enough money for food tonight. Third world problems.
What problems do you face? What can the first world do to help the third world? What could the world look like if we think global and act local?
This is a really challenging question and subject that we're going to be dealing with today. Alby, it's great to have you here. Alby Tomassi, you're part of YGAP. In fact, you're one of the co-founders of YGAP about 5 years ago. Just tell us a little bit about YGAP, first of all.
YGAP's a not-for-profit that aims to inspire social entrepreneurs to end poverty.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
cool. And you do fundraising?
We do it through fundraising initiatives like the 5 Cent campaign,
Yeah.
and we also do it through social enterprise, which we experimented in 2010 with
Now,
the Campfire
I
Cafe.
love the 5 Cent campaign. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the 5 Cent campaign was conceived, and it's an idea based on putting the value back into the 5 cent piece. There are $150 million worth of 5 cent pieces in this country, and we walk past them, we vacuum them up, we leave them in the change drawer. The thing that I love about the 5 Cent campaign is actually that everyone can be involved. Teenagers, grandmothers, it's an incredibly accessible thing to be doing.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Putting it in the hands of children, grandmothers, the whole deal. Absolutely.
I've got a wallet full of 5 cent pieces.
We'll take them.
I'm happy to give them to you.
We should actually do, before you leave today, we'll get all the 5 cent pieces in
I
place.
like it.
Yeah. Tell us why you got involved in YGAP.
Certainly, I was lucky enough to accidentally bump into one of our other co-founders, Elliot Costello, in January of last year, and I was looking for another volunteer experience. I had been probably not engaged in volunteering for about 6 months, and they were just a group of young people who were really excited about life and were saying yes to, you know, those big overwhelming issues, and I just was so infectious I wanted to get involved.
Yeah, you can see the passion, can't you, in Laura?
Thank you, that's very kind.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, it's the overwhelming issues. It's each individual thinks, what can I do about this? But you're breaking it down so that they can.
Yeah.
Alby, what would you say was the number one issue facing overseas at the moment?
Well, for us, it was we believe that poverty stems from the lack of education in developing countries. So we really wanted to tackle the building of classrooms and teacher training and being able to go and send our volunteers over to Rwanda, to Cambodia, to Ghana to be able to engage with locals, because we believe that local people have the answer to local problems.
That's
so
great.
rather than, and they taught us a lot. I got asked, like, whilst I was there, how are you finding your experience? And I just thought, to be honest, I came over here thinking I could teach more.
We've heard this story before, and you ended up getting more.
And and that was in 2008 when I still didn't understand why I was doing what I do. And that's evolved, and I'm still nearly there, finding out why I'm doing what I do. But I know I'm on the right path because of the amazing people that surround us in this space. And the impact that we're doing overseas can't be measured, but the impact we're doing in Australia is what's more important, because we're engaging tens of thousands of young Australians to make change here. So, I think that that's a pressing issue, education. Human trafficking is probably the other area that we're focusing on. In Ghana, we've rescued 38 children out of modern-day slavery in Lake Volta.
Phenomenal.
So the process of negotiating with slave masters for their release and trying to educate them as well, not just persecute them. So that there's 10,000 children engaged in enslaved in bonded labour in Lake Volta, of which 38's a good start. And
Not the way all the way there yet.
we won't.
No, but that's the
certainly
thing,
trying.
isn't it? You know, you
Yeah.
can look at this massive
Yeah,
problem
absolutely.
and go, well, I can't do much,
Yeah.
therefore I'll do nothing. And at least you have made
Yeah.
a difference to 38, and I'm sure they're very appreciative.
I say I went to Africa. I didn't change Africa, Africa changed me.
Yes.
And I suppose that it's really easy to be overwhelmed by these really huge, immense global issues like human trafficking or poverty and be overwhelmed into nothing. You know, how
Yes.
can one person make a change? And I think that by connecting through YGAP and this group of young people who will have drawn a line in the sand and said, I will actually not be ineffective, I will not be silenced.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, look, I think it's great, exciting.
Just on that, even changing one person's life, you've made a massive difference.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
for us to be able to go into a country like Rwanda, in a school that was going to be closed down by government, for us to come in and partner with a grassroots organisation over there and to be able to build 11 classrooms with the vision of 18, a teaching facility, a teachers program, and see their graduation rate from primary school to high school go from 0% to 94 within 3 years.
That's
and 2 of our
phenomenal.
students were in the top 60 of the nation.
And with those classrooms that you want to get up to 18, how much does it cost in monetary value to get that happening? Like, is that a lot of money?
Yeah, interesting question, because we're going through that at the moment. The price of construction all around the world always fluctuates. Rwanda, it's risen. We're at $17,100 per classroom at the moment. But we do send local labourers, we send Australian labourers to work with local labourers.
As volunteers. Fantastic.
And then they do the purchasing together. So we can go back to the donor or the sponsor of YGAP and actually say to them that this is what we used your money for, but at the same time we spent it as well. So we know that it's going to where it needs to be.
That's great.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, the Y in YGAP stands for Generation Y, doesn't it? So
It does.
you're aimed at younger people, is that correct? As an organisation and mobilising the youth?
Yeah, originally
Y?
yes.
Yeah.
In 2008 when it began, it was more of a response rather than an action. When we found that volunteering was exorbitant, the fees were exorbitant to volunteer overseas. So 12 like-minded mates really got together and said, how do we do this a la cheap and how do we get there and make a difference and not blow a budget? So the YGAP spiralled out of control from there and
Beautifully put.
yeah, and we finally got organised and said to ourselves, well, YGen was an initial response.
Yep.
That's us. So we thought,
Yes.
how can we create a vehicle that YGeners can contribute to, considering our generation is considered selfish. So, and you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed that they all want to volunteer time and effort and money and it's great. It's very passionate. I believe it's not young professionals, because young professionals, when you think about that, it's suit and tie, they're out in the workforce. We attract everyone and anyone.
Sorry, I think that YGAP for me now, YGen, is actually about enthusiasm, and it's more like I think it's gone beyond. Like Gen Y, that
Sure.
like really stringent like group
Yes.
of age group, and
I
it's
love
just more
it,
of an
though,
enthusiasm and
Because you're mobilising people to actually do
Do
something
something.
Yeah.
rather than
Yeah.
talk about doing something.
Yeah.
And making a vehicle that's affordable for them.
yeah.
Well, at the moment we charge lodgement like $30 a night. Instead of 150, which
Yeah.
50% of those fees would usually go to the admin of the other organisations.
Yeah.
So
We have to go to a break in just a moment, but just before we do, I want to get your answer to, is it the First World's responsibility to tackle Third World issues? Laura?
Okay, that's a big question. I don't think it's. I don't take it on personally as on behalf of the First World. I think it's. It's a personal issue for me. I think it's about I don't agree with social injustice, and I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
Yep.
And I don't think that's a paternalistic statement, and I don't really feel comfortable with that. And I think at YGAP we're actually about partnership.
So you
It's
don't
not-
see it as us and them, and we've
No,
got to help
it's
them and
us.
all of that.
It's
Beautiful.
the collective.
I think it's
Yeah.
both and,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's not
Yeah.
either or.
No.
Okay. Great answer. We will be back with more discussion in just a moment on The Exchange. Welcome back to The Exchange. We're having an interesting discussion here with Alby Tomassi and Meese about how to make a difference globally by acting locally. And we heard from Laura just before the break, Alby. I'd like to get your response to that as well. Is it our responsibility in the first world to help those in the third world?
I think where YGAP's moving to is the social enterprise space. So we come up with innovative ideas, and how you need to reflect that in the developing world is to have your organisation do what they do in the country where it's founded and be reflected or mirrored over in the countries it supports. So we would like to take entrepreneurs over to developing countries to inspire them to come up with ideas that will be suited to their local communities, and then empower them, help them with business modelling, and then let them run with these new businesses that will then employ local labour and stimulate economy.
So it's like a partnership, really, isn't it? You're working with someone from here and they're helping and coaching someone from there with basic business principles, but in their field.
Training the locals.
I think collaboration.
Yeah.
I think it creates lasting change that way.
Yeah.
Like building classrooms and having the statistics I said about Rwanda before are all fantastic, and we're doing very good with the money that we've been donated. However, to be able to make it sustainable over the long term, I believe that local people have the answer to local problems, and they need to be able to be engaged, trained, and then inspired to continue to be where they really should be.
Fantastic. So how are we actually doing with lessening poverty, making poverty history, so to speak?
The work towards the Millennium Development Goals as set by the United Nations, I suppose, look, we're trying to do our part. I think that the global financial crisis in 2007 or 9?
2008.
Got it wrong. Really weakened the position, because we've seen a lot of aid budgets, rounded back a little.
So it's just made it a bit tougher.
Yeah.
The reading I've done on this subject, though, is that we are making inroads and lessening poverty worldwide in general, but we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, there are some milestones, and the biggest that I think inspired me and the whole management team was by 2028, extreme poverty as we know it will be eliminated. With 1990, I think it was at 44%, don't quote me, but it's around that, and in 2000 it was at 22%.
Yeah, that's wonderful, isn't it?
So we're
certainly making inroads.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
So that's hopeful. I mean, that's good news.
We can make a difference. In 1998, the United Nations put out a statement that if everybody in the developed world donated the cost of a cappuccino per week to combat world poverty, we would eradicate world poverty. So that's 1998. $4 a week, and everyone in the West did that.
Yeah.
We'd eradicate it. The thing is, not everyone's doing that.
I've already paid for 2 coffees today, so it would obviously be very affordable.
If we just did that. So anyway, that's what we think. Let's go out on the street and see what the people have to say.
Do you think people are desensitised to third world issues?
My opinion on it would probably be that it would almost seem a little bit surreal almost, because it's not in your face all the time.
No, I don't. I'm from South Africa, a third world country. I think that first world countries are now making it cool. They're making it the in thing to help the third world countries.
I think in the general public they are. I'm a student of international politics, so I'm quite up on what's going there. But I think, especially as the economy is kind of going down, that's taking precedent over what's going on around the world.
Do you think people are becoming desensitised to third world issues?
Yes, I do actually. I think it's. I think we see so much of it in pictures and what have you, but it's never really right up close to us. I don't think we really ever actually can step into those people's shoes to see what it feels like. So I think it's just a bit of overload in terms of what we see. So we don't notice a lot of it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's not that much coverage in the media of truly what it's like in developing countries and how much hardship there is there.
I do come from a third world country, from Sri Lanka. And I constantly see people donating, giving money, supporting children, even back there.
I think so, yeah. I think people are so used to seeing ads on television. They're so used to this sort of generic, donate to charity kind of thing. I think people just want to go about their own business and they don't think they can make a difference anyway.
And what do you do on a local level to help some of these global issues?
I give to charity. I try to live as sustainably as possible and, just remain thoughtful of, just everyone around.
I guess if you wanted to help out, you're just trying to, by raising awareness about the whole thing. How you go about that to open people's eyes, I'm not really that sure.
I'm working in full third countries and I'm sending my money home. That's me.
Do you think people are becoming desensitised to third world issues?
Yes, I do.
What do you think is the cause of that?
I think because we hear about it all the time and we just get used to things that we see on the TV.
Shop at op shops, I guess. I haven't really been involved in a lot of volunteering as yet, but it's something I'd like to do. But yeah, I probably don't do as much as I could do.
Well, some interesting opinions there, and it's welcome now to our Street Talk reporter, Sandra Cavallo.
Hi, how are you?
And Sandra, how different were the opinions? Some were thinking we're not hearing enough, and others are saying they're become desensitised.
Yeah, definitely. I felt quite a few felt that it was desensitised, unless they came from that country. You would have heard the South African and the Sri Lankan lady. Or they've got an interest. So if you've got a political background or you have a real interest in something, then they're totally open to it.
So the bottom line there would be awareness, wouldn't it?
Or interest, I think, or some personal interest. I think if you've had some first-hand experience, like if you've gone to a third world country or developing nation,
your family's come from there.
Then you're interested. But if you've never been exposed to that, then it seems like people are desensitised.
You're a bit removed from it. Would that be your experience, Laura?
I think that's a really interesting comment because I think most of us have gone to a Bali or a Thailand on a holiday as an Australian. It's a rite of passage almost. And a lot of us, if you don't make the time to go actually see the country beyond the tourism experience, it is really easy to be sheltered and kind of not see how extreme poverty is in other countries other than Australia because it's so different.
Yeah. Alby?
So in 2008, when YGAP began, I hadn't been to a Bali or a Thailand or any developing country.
And how old were you at that point?
In 2008, I was...
He's 5 years younger than he is now.
26.
26. So that's quite a decent amount of time to have not done that.
Yeah. So I've always been privileged enough to be able to travel to developed countries.
Yes.
And so, not having seen that existence, I needed to make myself a product of the environment and go over there and feel it. It did change my life. It wasn't a momentary change. It didn't happen then and there. It changed the course of my life. And I think the word charity is getting a little bit old and used. A lot of feedback from our corporates, that was from individuals, which is probably reflective. Feedback from the corporates is how do you connect with us in what we do in our day-to-day lives? How can you come up with business ideas that will allow us not to change the direction of how we go home just because we need to come past wherever to buy a product off you to can fund a developing country. It's more about allowing them to walk into a cafe and buy a coffee and know that money that they choose where it goes to is supporting a social outcome. So I think charity is turning to a business model and I think it needs to.
Yes, absolutely.
And rather than, for example, a World Vision or some other organisation like that flashing up images of children on your screen, is that what we're becoming a lot more desensitised to? But we're happy when we're buying our coffee that our money will then go to a good cause.
Just on the World Vision note, they're doing amazing things around the world.
Absolutely.
And I think that their model's great, but to capture a younger audience, seeing a child, I think sponsoring a community rather than sponsoring a child is what we believe in. And so we started our LifeLink program, which sponsors communities. So rather than targeting one individual child, we raise money for the community.
Okay. I think it's also about integrating those choices into normal expenditure. If I'm going to buy a coffee, do I want to buy a coffee with a social outcome, or do I want, Mr. Smith who owns the business? So I'm making that
clothing, same thing.
Exactly, I'm making those financial decisions already. So as a educated consumer, I want my profits, even if only partially, to contribute to a social change.
So would you
Fantastic.
say, Laura...
We need to go to a break, but Sandra, thank you so much for coming in, and we'll see you next time on the programme.
Thank you.
We will be back in just a moment on The Exchange. Welcome back to The Exchange, where our guests Alby Tomassi and Meese from YGAP have been sharing their insights on how we can make a difference globally. I guess one of the things I'm concerned about, and I'd love to hear your take on it, is have we become apathetic and a little bit hardened toward third world needs here in Australia? Well, let's start with you, Laura.
Personally, I think that we haven't. Every person that I talk to, and I always am talking about YGAP because I find it, I'm very enthused by the subject. People are really engaged, but I think what's happened is that to evade against or fight against apathy is actually to make sure I'm clear on what I connect with.
Yes.
So for me, it's not about, environmental issues, it's not about animal kind of issues, and I totally respect that and I think they're really important, but for me it's actually about young people and children and providing equal opportunities.
Clarity. I mean, I find for myself to stop being overwhelmed by so many needs, I've become extremely focused and clear on what it is I want to work with.
And we're all individuals and you have, very different, kind of things that you connect with, and I think that's how you actually fight apathy. If you connect with it, you're going to be energised by it and continue to make it a priority and part of your life.
Yeah. Very true. What about you, Alby? What would you say to that?
I'd just say authenticity in your messaging needs to be quite clear. Organisations need to be transparent. I think the new currency moving forward is trust more than anything. And with YGAP, our messaging is quite clear on the direction that we want to take. I don't see that at all. I don't see a negative response in the world in regards to funding social outcomes or the developing countries, because in this time of crisis where budgets have been cut by big corporates, we've still been able to achieve not only the targets that we've been trying to hit, but we've also been offered a whole employee base across companies with thousands of employees that want to be engaged with us. Like, they may not have the money, but they have the time, and time is our greatest resource. And YGAP doesn't have much money, but it does have a plethora of people that we can call upon with skills that are needed to make a positive impact. So
that's wonderful.
And on the money issue, I mean, I've read some statistics that if we could just increase our giving by 0.5%, it would save 500,000 people a year and educate 700,000 kids. Like, that is a small a small thing to be able to do. But there's more things we can do as well, Alby. Tell us some of the things that YGAP are looking at.
So in 2010 we experimented with Kinfolk Cafe, a social enterprise in Burke Street in Melbourne. We have 5 paid staff and the rest are volunteers.
Great.
Hard to retain good volunteers, so we are finding...
Yes, we have to eat here as well, even in the
Which is a good point, because Kinfolk has successfully generated $700,000 a year, supports 4 projects around the world, including here in Australia.
So the people going to that cafe, do they actually know what they're giving to? And
oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's a really great gimmick, really, is that when you buy your coffee or you pay your bill, you get a coffee bean, and so there's the four jars, and they identify the 4 projects, and so at the end of every financial quarter, if 33% is in the Ghana jar and 15% is in Rwanda, only because I'm buying for Ghana.
You choose the jar.
So you're upping the ante on that.
Yeah. You get to choose the jar.
You get to choose where your money goes. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
That is wonderful.
So we also support Urban Seed, a homeless foundation in Melbourne, and Cathy Freeman Foundation in Palm Island.
And just before we finish up, the 5 cent campaign, we talked about it earlier in the program. Let's just really focus on that and tell us how people can get involved, because this is wonderful.
Wonderful, thank you. So unfortunately we've missed the 5 cent campaign for 2013. It runs in the 5th month of each year. So if guys want to actually get involved, start collecting, find a shoebox, a jam jar, preferably without the jam, and start collecting your 5 cent pieces. You can like us on Facebook or get involved via our website, www.ygap.com.au, and be involved, sign up or make a pledge in May 2014.
Fabulous.
So the pledge, just to clarify the pledge, because it's something that we came up with this year. So in our first year we piloted 5 cent after incubating the idea for 2.5 years. We raised $52,000 in our first year.
Phenomenal.
Which is $1.5 million.
All in 5 cent pieces.
$1 million 5 cent pieces, or over $1 million 5 cent pieces.
Yep. And got supported by 1.2 million in-kind donations. So billboards and TV commercials.
Let's see that increase for 2014. We've got to finish right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
But people can go to the website for more details.
Thank
Laura and
you.
Alby, thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely wonderful. Please go to our website for more details on YGAP and for more information about this show, The Exchange. We look forward to seeing you next time.
See you very soon.